Hey Mo,
Hey, Ricky.
the doctor is in.
The doctors are in.
I
I
know the
love it
doctors are in the
today.
house. So
Yes.
Mo, I'm in Oakland
Wow.
and we are doing When We Trial on the road. And we are in Oakland today for First Friday.
Oh my
So
gosh.
what we do, and you guys help me out, but it's an event in Oakland, but basically we're going to be in the street in an hour. We're hanging out at our Airbnb at the moment, but I'm here with our buddy. Look at with Danny. I know to be like in person. Everybody, good to see you. And,
So good to see you.
Dr. Candace Thompson.
Wow.
She is
Hey,
a
Doc.
brand new surgeon, breast surgeon. She started working at Stanford Emeryville this week. This is her first week as a doctor. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, well, you've been a
Well,
doctor.
yeah. But it's my first week practicing as an attending.
Yay, say that
Wow.
again. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Doc. I wish you a joyous career and lots of great memories and lots of meaningful work out there. What are the cancer statistics? Z, you can answer too, probably, Phil, in the area out there. How are things looking compared to the rest of the country?
Well, I don't want to try to give too many specifics because honestly, I don't have a lot of specifics right now because the rates keep changing. We are really still in the midst of discovering how many patients were not seen during the pandemic.
Absolutely.
And that has really, it's a frightening thought, because that's something additional to the already existent disparities in terms of screening access and availability. So what I can tell you is that unfortunately, the Black populace, we still make up the greatest percentage of cancer incidence in breast right now. And we still have problems in terms of screening here in the Bay Area. We're trying to address it, but it's still a problem.
Wow.
Dr. Candace, isn't that something? Go ahead.
Yeah, it is. It's really crazy. And to piggyback off of that, Black patients are more likely to have higher rates of breast cancer related mortality as well as overall mortality whenever they're diagnosed, even with triple negative and with ER or PR positive breast cancer. So it's not just if you have a specific type of breast cancer, it's all types of breast cancer. And specifically at Stanford, we do see that we see a lot less African-American patients, unfortunately, enrolling in trials and trying to get involved with those sorts of things to help better their health. So we're really trying to help encourage patients, especially minority patients, Black patients, to get involved in that way. And that's what some of my work is actually focused on at Stanford right now. So
I love that. And let me ask you guys about this. It seems like in an area like Oakland, is access to care an issue, or is there care and there's different reasons why people may not be able to access that care? But is it a challenge finding and getting screening for people, do you think? Because I think when we say that word access to care, people don't quite understand what it means. They're like, what do you mean? Is there not a hospital? Is there not an imaging center? Is there not a mammography unit available? Well, like, how do we explain to people watching what access to care barriers are truly?
Well, I think it's not a one specific answer. It's a variance. A lot of times it's insurance. Insurance is like dastardly. Okay, it's awful. And then it's also fear. Fear is one of the biggest barriers to the initial screening, because a lot of women, speaking specifically to breast cancer, are very intuitive. They know their bodies.
Yeah.
And they'll feel something is wrong before they even go in to be screened. Wow. So a lot of times that delay in screening is because they already kind of know, but you don't want to know. So now it's about confirmation. It's not even about the screening.
Right.
And so that's a barrier that I don't feel is given enough attention. And when it is blame the victim. Oh, well, why didn't you come in? No. Okay, just stop. So that's a conversation that I feel like we need to have more, that is more empathetic and that is more empowering and that offers the support from the point of us even suspecting or fearing something could be wrong. A lot of it also is that we have patients that are housing insecure, you know, but by the time they come in, it's a different story because they were housing insecure. So access is almost like, for me, I see it as the gateway drug. It's intersectional. It can go from being housing insecure, it can be fear, it could be you having an employer that's just not right, that don't want to give you time off, and like it's just always an issue about something. It could be, you know, that you have young children and you know are struggling to get daycare. It's so many things. But in terms of practical issues, I would say being insured is one of the barriers that shows up in terms of the process of screening and access.
When we first met, one of the first things you said to me, which was frightening, was that oftentimes when you get a new patient, the first thing you ask them is, when was your last meal?
Mm-hmm.
Did you eat today? Where
Wow.
you live here? Live here. Do you have a place to sleep tonight? Where are your kids?
You know, that's so powerful, because that has nothing to do with your cancer, Z. You didn't say a word about cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And it remains the same, especially in California where everything is so expensive.
Doc, you smiling, you like, yeah, I can relate.
You know, I'm like two paychecks away from a skateboard. You know, the gas is so high out here, you know, and then we expect our patients
Right.
to be able to get here, there, and everywhere. No.
Yeah, often what we hear too, you guys, you know, well, I can get a free mammogram. So I go get my free mammogram, but then they call me back and say, can you come back tomorrow for the MRI or the sonogram?
Right.
And they come back and the MRI costs $2,000.
Exactly.
And it's not covered.
Right.
And I think too, a lot of people think they have insurance till they get sick.
Mm-hmm.
And they have whatever policy that their employer gives them, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Whatever money for out of their little paycheck every month, right? As we all do. But it doesn't really cover anything.
It doesn't.
When you really need it,
Sure.
you know, the deductible is $5,000 or the whatever the limits are this, or it's constrained by, and it doesn't take care of you.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, you don't know what it is or how to use it. I think that's another barrier, is that people really don't quite understand how to utilize their insurance and how to use, you know, the benefits that they do have until they need them. And then they don't realize what they had, how it works. And they sit on the phone and you already don't feel well and you're already afraid. And now you got all these, you know, phone calls you need to make and folks you need to contact. It's a vicious, ugly cycle. I think, what is the word that you use, Z?
Girl, which one? No,
you said something like it's malicious or something. I don't know what it was, but it was a good word to describe. Dastardly. There it is. I knew it was a good word. See,
family friendly language. So I'm gonna say dastardly. But in all seriousness, we really need to. Again, this is when I talk about taking on a legislative approach, because a lot of times the patient has the need, but that need alone does not establish eligibility for the insurance that could assist them. For example, we have the breast cancer cervical treatment plan. That's, you know, an insurance that covers with specificity patients with breast cancer, you know, from screening, which is the Every Woman Counts program, all the way through treatment. But you could be $1 over the federal poverty limit and you will not qualify. So your need qualifies you, but your income doesn't. To me, that doesn't even make sense. And I'm like, why does no one address that as a form of alignment?
Right.
How can you need it but not qualify? It should be need-based, not income-based.
Right. It'd be.
And you know, that's something that I'm really looking forward to taking on as far as advocacy, because it's insane to me. It makes absolutely no sense.
I love that. We were just at the Congressional Black Caucus last week and you know, thinking about things to put on their radar as far as legislative things they can do, because I think sometimes they feel powerless, like, well, this is beyond us. It's mammoth, it's a machine. It's how do we tackle specific things that are going to make a difference? But this sounds like something really specific that they could sink their teeth into.
Yeah.
Because it's just a matter of changing eligibility guidelines. You're not changing the insurance coverage, but we have to be intentional. You know, if we're going to have, you can't address equity on one hand and then come up with programs that are not need-based, but they're income-based, because that's
Doesn't
discordant.
make sense.
That's
Yeah,
completely
yeah,
discordant. And then it becomes a work of futility. And to me, this is like, it is so simple. You have a need-based program that's income-based in terms of quality, in terms of eligibility.
Eligibility, that's
You know,
crazy.
you can set a cap, but don't set it so low that nobody qualifies.
Right. So Mo, we should put this in our article we're writing about that.
We absolutely will. Absolutely. So First Friday, and here in
Yeah,
Philly, when we have a First Friday,
Yeah,
First Friday for us means that there's street festival. It means like the vendors are out, the stores. It means the art galleries are open. It means like people are gonna, especially because today it's like 75 degrees in Philly today. Knock on wood. The weather was so nice, right? And everybody is out in these streets. There's food trucks and things going on. What's First Friday like there for you guys?
Well, this is my first time experiencing it, so I'm really excited to experience it with touch.
Yeah, so I don't know, Haley, you know, this is Haley's thing. She's been working on this all summer. And we are going to be at Kingston 11. It's like a Jamaican restaurant, which kind of kicks off where the street starts. But it's a big street fair. I've been to it once, but we are going to have a hip hop dance company perform at our booth. We are going to be in the street. We've got our great cool bags that we're going to give out, you know, our When We Trial bags, and we're going to be talking about clinical trials. And so we have a couple of breasties joining us to, you know, kind of talk to people. But you know, Mo, this is our outreach to be where Black women live, work, play, pray, and slay. And so this is our 17th event this summer.
Wow.
We are trying to just be in the community and make clinical trials a conversation that's easy and safe, and break it down. And, you know, we've learned, I keep telling you that, you know, I think the biggest fear of clinical trials is fear of the unknown. People just don't know what they are. And they have this kind of mindset about Henrietta Lacks and the Tuskegee and syphilis.
Very true. Yeah.
They don't really know that, understand what standard of care is. No, there isn't a sugar pill in cancer research. That you're going to get standard of care. And you want to explain that, Dr. Candace? What does that mean?
I was just going to say, are you seeing that, Dr. Candace? And are you hearing that from patients sometimes too?
All the time. Patients are like, I don't want to be involved in this trial. I don't want to be an experiment. I don't want you to experiment on me. I don't want to be a guinea pig. And I assure everyone that for breast cancer trials and for cancer trials in general, you never get a sugar pill. You always get the standard of care, which means you always get what you should get to treat your cancer. And then you may get something else on top of that that's cutting edge that may help prevent your cancer from coming back in the future. A lot of new drugs are founded that way. There are a lot of exciting drugs I could ramble off right now that have started that way through clinical trials. And unfortunately, African American patients are the least involved in clinical trials, even though they're the highest likely to die from breast cancer, which is astounding to me. Some of the pivotal clinical trials, African Americans are involved like 1 to 4% of those trials.
Yep.
And
it's abysmal. It's dastardly.
And you know, we went back and dug in history, and we weren't in any of the trials for the standard of care drugs. So the other stuff that we're all taking, adriamycin, the red devil, and Cytoxan and Taxol and Taxotere and carboplatin and all these drugs, there were no Black women in those trials.
So you don't even know how Black women react to those drugs since you're not even involved in those trials. So
it makes you wonder why we aren't doing retrospective studies that really look at that, because Black women have been taking adriamycin and Cytoxan for 15 years, right? 20 years, maybe longer. So why are we not going back and looking at the side effect profile in those women? It's not like they haven't been taking it. It's not like we don't know and we haven't been administering it. And so I wonder about the retrospective, the benefit and how hard it would be to do retrospective studies, really
Yeah.
looking at that and teasing that out, because we have to record that in the medical record. Now, is it paper charts and all that? Yeah, maybe some of that stuff, the early data. But I feel like at this point, if we chose to, and somebody wrote a grant for it, we could possibly do something of an analysis and look at these things just to establish that adriamycin and Cytoxan has a similar side effect profile in Black women, or to establish that, what the cardiotoxicity of Herceptin is the same or it's worse. And maybe that's why we end up changing the dose, because what we find is that Black women are offered, once they start their chemotherapy regimens, many times their regimens are altered. And they're given, right, they're given less of, they're giving a lesser strength. They may have greater cardiac issues or toxicity, more nausea, more vomiting, things like that. And so I feel like if we could look at that a little bit, we might glean some really interesting data.
Well, and I think that's right. And even some of the newer drugs that have come out, like Keytruda and Trodelvy, I've actually asked them, okay, so now what's happening? Now you're in the marketplace. We're seeing good performance for triple negative patients, but are you tracking that? Are you looking at that?
Yeah.
My chemo got dialed back though too, Mo. That happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the evidence though for what's happening is a 41% higher mortality rate and a 39% higher recurrence rate. And we're dying. So the drugs, whether they're working, some of them are working somehow, but they're not working most of the time.
Or are we not getting the full strength? Are we not reaping the benefits because the doses are altered, right? Is our recurrence rate higher because we didn't get the full Monty, right? Because we didn't finish therapy and we stopped after 8 rounds of Taxol and we didn't get through 12,
Or we started 60 days after our diagnosis. We didn't start on time.
Yeah.
Or we didn't get the chemo in time, or we were later stage. All these things are in place, but we just don't know. And
that's where real world data comes in. Dr. Candace, do you guys get a chance to really explore that in your program and in your practice? Are you looking at collecting some of that real world data?
So I'm not specifically collecting real world data for those chemotherapy agents. I am collecting real world data looking at, I have a few different projects going on, but we're looking at the immune response in minority patients. We know that that plays a large role. There's been studies looking at something called tumor infiltrating lymphocytes, and that has been shown to be very important in mortality for patients. However, African-American patients have lower numbers of those, and that could be due to socioeconomic factors or other outside factors, but we're looking at that specifically.
Yeah. But Mo, who's accountable for this? Like at some point, somebody has to step up and say, I'm in charge of the 41% mortality rate problem. You know what I mean?
No, they don't. We wish they did, but it's NCI, right? It's NIH, it's drug companies, it's everybody. It's
who's on first?
It's the moonshot people. It's everybody. Like people we shoot to the moon. We get left on the ground here. Who's accountable to make sure that we don't get left on the ground in the moonshot? And I understand there's a panel of people. And so I think you're making the right inroads, Ricky, by collaborating with those folks, because it is challenging, and Z, let me ask you, do you think that women would be more inclined to participate in some of these retrospective, now that you're finished your treatment types of questionnaires and surveys or blood work or other things that could sort of help us understand, because I get while you're not feeling well, you might not want to be in a trial and have extra lab draws and have extra appointments, and you already have access to care and transportation issues. But do you think that retrospective type stuff after the journey is further along, is that a better time to approach women?
For the most part, it probably is, because I think that they're at a place where they can feel like the clinical trial was helpful and they have something positive to contribute. Because if you're just gonna if you're positioning, or they feel positioned, or patients feel positioned where they're just another statistic to say, oh, it didn't work, they're like, you know what, no. And then also, from my perspective, in my opinion, is I think we need to really understand the standard of care from the patient's perspective, because it's not just clinical. If we're going to talk about standard of care, let's talk about standard of care and be very
Tell me more.
descriptive and very deliberate. Either we're talking about the treatment as a component and then the care. What was the follow-up like? How many times did someone call you to check on you and see how you were doing? Was this, were your needs met in terms of any nutritional deficiencies that may have arisen? And you're somebody already impoverished and can't hardly put food on your table now. So let's really take a real deep dive into what the standard of care is from the patient perspective and the patient experience. Because oftentimes we get diminished when it's just a clinical trial. We're just the statistics. Now we're a metric. It's a quality improvement, but on whose side?
Is that part of the standard though? And this may be part of the problem, is that there isn't a standard that says we need to call this person after their whatever and see how they're doing and record that. You know what I mean? Is that part of the standard, or is that an area maybe where we can have some say and some influence to make sure that those types of follow-ups are?
I think it should be. I think that I personally just believe that if we're going to take on clinical trials or any other form of patient care under the guise of whole person care, then care about the whole person and make sure that there are access and touch points throughout. You know, we are offering this to improve someone's life and give them hope. Well, let's check to make sure that what we have asked the patient to invest in is carrying forth that hope. Where is it missing? Was this a little dip here? Was it there? So that is all. It's not just a retrospective, meaning that we're looking back, because we're with them. This is a journey. This is not just a trial, and we have to make sure that we understand that our patients, they deserve to have their hand held throughout that journey.
Yeah.
We know what though, but this is the exact reason why I want Black women to do trials,
Right.
because you get a better standard of care in a trial. In a trial, you know,
They have to call. Yeah.
Yeah, when you start chemo, right, you get your first chemo, you're probably not going to get a scan for 3 months, right? So you wait 3 months, you do how many infusions, and you pray and hope, and you have anxiety about that day, and you hope to God that the drug worked. So you've been in this chemo for 3 months, but you don't know what happened, right? But if you're in a trial, they're all over you.
Yeah.
You got more doctors, more nurses, more scans, more tests. They
time.
call you all the time. They're making sure you ate, to your point. They're making sure you got transportation. They may even be taking care of your kids.
And although it shouldn't take all of that for you to get that kind of care.
Right, exactly. But
Exactly right.
it should be standard of care for
Yes,
everything.
it should.
That's why I'm saying, go do a trial.
Yeah.
A trial for a Black woman is your best asset,
That's true.
because you're going to get better care.
Yeah.
And you're also helping the generations
Yes.
after you.
Yes.
And you're also giving back so that
Yes.
we know scientifically what works for Black women.
Right.
And we
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
a better
Yeah.
understanding of
Yeah,
that.
and I just always say we're investing. We're investing.
We're
'Cause we're
investing.
giving back to somebody every day anyway.
Yeah.
This is a Black woman. It ain't a day we ain't giving something to somebody, right? So
You better preach.
I say we are investing. We are investing.
We are investing.
in,
We know.
in the future generations.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Okay.
but you know, we don't even know how the regular chemo's gonna work in our body anyway. So to me, once you take a chemo, once they stick that thing in your port, you are a clinical trial, because you hope that it's gonna work for your cancer. But for me, like I took you know, a THC, adriamycin taxotere, Cytoxin, and my cancer came back. So they didn't work. And then I had to take more drugs. But so, you know, it was a trial that didn't work. So I had to try more drugs that I think you got worked. But really, clinical trials is no different from regular treatment. And that's the message we're trying to get out
That's
there.
where I think we go wrong. I'm not saying we go wrong,
Yeah.
but so
Tell me
many
more.
cancer patients have had bad or substandard, suboptimal, whatever you want to call it, in the course of their regular treatment.
Right.
If you tell them that, they're gonna be like, no, thank you.
Yeah, because
Mm.
it's gonna be
No.
worse. It's gonna be
How do
worse.
you get around that though? How do you circumvent that? Because you're already, you know,
Right.
once the damage is done, how do you rebuild that?
You let them know that this is a reimagining, and this is a different offer. This is something totally different. I never link them to two, because I know my patient population, they will be like, hell no.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But if you tell them, no, this is new, this is an improvement all the way around, not just the drug, but the way in which you're going to be treated, the way you're going to be treated first and foremost. That's the
I love that.
first thing,
Right.
okay? Because the drug is secondary. I'm offering this because I love and care about you. And I'm not going to offer you no substandard, suboptimal type of treatment.
Right. Well, to
I
me,
love that.
It's the golden.
That makes me feel special. I feel warm and fuzzy hearing that.
Yeah, you know, we have to.
Yeah, but it's the golden rule. It's the golden rule that you learned from your mama, that we're not going to have health equity until every healthcare professional treats the patients how they want to be treated.
Right.
And that's why I tell our patients, is that what you would give to your mom? Is that how you would treat your daughter or your grandma or your auntie? And that's the level of care we have to get to, where we feel like, well, if it were me, I'd want this.
Yep. And despite everything, from that point, the patient feels cared for. Because you have come to them with that empathy and that care. And it's not just an offer, it's a commitment.
It's real.
And it's real. And even if the trial doesn't work, they know that you came at them out of a spirit of love and wanting them to get better, not wanting them just to try something.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, that's deep. So this is some heavy stuff. How do you take this?
I wish you could feel the heat in this room. Okay?
I feel it over here. I feel it through the screen. How do you take heavy stuff like this and take it to a street festival? What makes this approach unique, and what makes it work? How does it, again, Ricky, I'm gonna ask you this first and then we can go down the line, but what is it about this approach of taking when we trial and taking this information to a place where people are going out on Friday night to eat, drink, be merry, and dance, that makes it something that they're going to be receptive to? Because I do think you're onto something, but why does it work?
So we've had our best results, we've been doing this all summer, but we've had our best results in places where people weren't thinking about health, that they were thinking about hanging out and partying, but oftentimes they're with their families. So it becomes a family conversation. And frankly, we need to understand what a trial is before we need one. But also, if you can feel her fire coming out of her belly, and she's looking you dead in the eye in something that we're in an environment that you don't expect to be talking about this, you're going to feel something, and it's going to make you think about it, and it's going to make you, stop in your tracks. And so, we'll see how it does in Oakland, but everywhere we've been, it's been like, wait a minute, like, whoa, clinical trials, why are we talking about this? And we said, and then we show our breasties and we say, I'm a survivor. I'm 11 years. My doctor gave me 2 years to live. And we have our survivors talk to people, and they can see us and feel us and see our, our Dr. Candace and say, I'm a surgeon, I'm a doctor. I cut cancers out of people. And Mo, you saw it in New Orleans, that when you see these words to people on the street, and when they're in a happy place, it just makes them think. It catches them off guard, and then they love our bags.
Oh yes, they do. They love the swag. Yep.
We give our bags, and it just makes a conversation more in their space. So I feel like we are going to them, taking that message to them, as opposed to expecting them to come to us, because they won't.
Candace, they're gonna love you. People come up and they hug you, and they're so proud to see you.
I'm so proud.
It's a love fest. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. We're gonna put her out there, man.
I'm excited to be out there. I'm excited to partner with Touch too. We're trying to get up some of these seminars. I want to do monthly seminars in the Oakland area. Just try to get to the community and like Ricky said, like, tell people about trials and about breast cancer before they actually need it, so that they're actually thinking about it and they have some preconceived notions about it, some good ones beforehand, if they ever need it.
Yeah.
Z, what makes for a good outreach program? Because right now it's October, and every church, every women's group, every synagogue, every mosque, you name it, everybody is having an outreach event, right? And it's awareness all month long. What do you think makes for something that's gonna really spark something in people, either conversation or movement, or make it impactful?
Well, I'm going to use this opportunity to plug what I have come to adopt as the standard of successful impactful and meaningful community outreach, and that's Umoja, which was founded by Dr. Kim Rose. She is over UCSF Helen Diller Family Cancer Center, and she is bad. But the thing about her is the outreach is not episodic. It's not event driven. Okay, it's need driven. It's empowerment driven. It's uplift driven, and it's commitment driven. See, a lot of times people, they try to associate commitment with an event. An event is just an event.
It's an event.
It is what it is. A commitment, it goes on. I don't care if it's breast cancer month, no cancer month, July, whatever, because cancer don't stop, so we don't stop. That's what we always say.
Right.
You know, can't stop, won't stop.
Right.
You know, that's kind of like the motto, especially, you know, Oakland, we kind of grind things out. But I think that's the difference, because before, I'm from that world where everything was event driven. Oh God, what are we gonna do? And then it's like, what do people need? I went from what do we do to what does community need? And then from there, it's just nonstop. The grind, it continues. And then, so now everyone knows who Umoja is. They know that we're here for the people. So the people come for us because they know why we're here. We're not here because it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Right.
We're
We're gonna be
here
here next
because
month.
we are aware of the
Right.
fact that our community needs to be educated and uplifted every day, all day.
Come on.
And you're
Okay?
gonna be here next month.
Uh,
And you're gonna
right?
be here the following month.
Yeah, and the following week.
Right. It's
So-
not one and done. Mhm.
So especially in communities where we have to acknowledge that we come from a place of earned mistrust. So many times people reach out and touch us, they touch and turn. It's November. What do we do
What
this month?
happened? Right,
What's
right.
what is the
Right, what's the
The ailment of the month.
The flavor of the month.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so they can't
Yeah,
trust.
yeah.
And so I would say just to elevate, to continue to elevate, you know, go from awareness to empowerment. It's incremental. It don't have to be all at once because it's an iterative process. But understand that, you know, need driven is need driven.
Yeah.
If you need education on Tuesday, more than likely you're gonna need it on Wednesday.
Right.
Somebody gonna need it on Wednesday, not October 2023.
Come on.
It's like Black
So-
History Month. I mean, guess what? It's
Not the shortest month of the year.
I know, it's
Wow.
March 1st and I'm still Black on.
Okay, oh girl, okay, girl. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, it's July now.
I know.
But yeah, so you know that's what I would say, and I just have to uphold that because I've been doing this work for a long time, meaning just working, and I would say that this is the first model where I've really been involved in something that is consistent and committed, and it has really elevated my understanding of what outreach really looks like. Because outreach, you reach out to lift up.
Yeah. And
Have you seen change?
coming
Have
today?
you? Sorry, go ahead, Ricky.
I said, we have the wisdom study coming out with us and
Yeah.
and
Oh,
so,
great.
you know, our first time, you know, in Oakland, but this is like the beginning because we want to be sustainable. We want to be consistent. We want to have a presence. And so that's why we're so happy to partner, you know, with Z and with Dr. Candace
Mhm.
and help her do
Yes.
this community outreach. So we're not going anywhere. I mean,
Right.
Panelists for our Public Health Commission's
Love
breast
it.
awareness presentation, and you will be receiving a Zoom link.
You got it. Let me know what you need and I'll
Yeah.
be there. I'll be there to
And bring it
support.
into the discourse,
Yeah, but we
you
have
know.
to just keep talking. I'm also doing a California.
Black Health Network.
Yes.
Me too, I'm the keynote. All right, so
All these VIPs over there. Let me ask you
We're gonna
this.
stay, but
Yeah.
we have to be everywhere. I mean, again, where we
It's
live,
true.
pray and slay,
Yeah.
and we
Mhm.
have to keep the message up, and we're just gonna keep beating this when we trial
Yeah.
drum until, and so we just got new numbers. So since May, we've signed up 3,900 Black women.
Right
into
on,
trial.
right on.
So we
Beautiful.
know it's working. We have a form of, you know, people are hearing us and hopefully getting it and wanting to put their toe in the water and save
Mhm.
themselves. I mean, at the end of the day, we just want to live. Like, what's it?
Right.
How do we live? And but we have so much more work to do.
Right.
to
But
make
you're
a real
doing the work.
difference.
That's my point. It's every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Have you seen the needs evolve? Have you seen the engagement evolve in all the years you've been doing this, Z? And Ricky too, have you seen the level of health literacy evolve? Are things headed in a
No.
better direction than
No.
when you began?
No.
It's a tough question. I know.
No, no. And I hope we can be hopeful for Dr. Candace because she's entering this world, right?
Mhm.
But you know, the health illiteracy in our community is pretty horrific. We don't know what we don't know. We don't, it's so the we don't even say the word, or she has a bad heart or he has the sugars. So we're still like not talking about it. Our families aren't talking about health until somebody gets their leg amputated or somebody's in hospice or something bad happens. And so we really want to keep these conversations happening and stimulate them in our households. And that's why we do our HBCU internship program. And that's why we need young doctors like you to we have to have these conversations in our households because nothing happens until somebody gets really sick.
We also need more investment in health literacy. Don't wait till I come dragging up in the hospital.
Right.
And then you want to hand me a pamphlet.
Right.
Really? It's like, if we're going to engage in preventive care, then engage. Don't hand me a pamphlet. That's not engagement to me.
The pamphlet after you get
After I'm already
after
sick.
you've diabetes, it's too late.
And so offer courses. I mean, especially now with Zoom, everything.
Yeah,
Zoom
it's right
is really-
here.
is a wonderful tool. And I feel like we can do things that engage community members to talk about nutrition. Everything doesn't have to be from a practitioner. We can teach.
Right.
We can set up. I did this thing. Oh God, I can't think of the name of it right now. Where we took people who suffer from, say for example, I'm asthmatic. Well, I went through a course where I trained and talked with other asthmatics, right? And so we did all the exercises together and we did our journaling, we did all of these things. It didn't take a doctor to help put together the training, but it was peer. It was peer led.
Well, that's what we're finding too.
And we can do health literacy the same way, and nutrition and exercise. It's beyond the pamphlet.
Yeah.
And we got to invest in literacy if we want literate people.
Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of these things aren't taught in schooling and primary schooling, even in undergrad. That's why it's really important to have these outreach events and to educate people. During my seminars, I have some breast models that I hope to bring around just to have all of the community get accustomed to doing breast exams, because a lot of times I know the US task force, they said not to do breast exams, and then they said it's okay to do self-breast exams, and we know that as Black women we're more likely to get breast cancer before the age of screening mammography. So it's extremely important to self-breast exams. So having these sort of events in order to help educate the community, I think are really extremely important. I know so many of my peers who were in their 20s or 30s who were diagnosed with breast cancer. And
it's true.
And it's so unfortunate. One of my classmates actually succumbed to the disease right after we graduated from medical school.
Oh my gosh, how old?
Yep.
She was in her early 30s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we're seeing it ripped from the headlines. I mean, it really is, it's an epidemic, I think, watching young women, young Black women, young white women, young women be diagnosed with this disease and be, blown off by their doctors and that sort of thing. And I think that's where you and I come in, Dr. Candace, and that, educating our colleagues about, acknowledging the patient in front of us and not just the constellation of symptoms or the quick mini mental shortcuts that say, oh, young woman, breast pain, lump, it's probably a cyst, and sending them on their way, because our brains are taught, we're hardwired to look for these shortcuts, right? And those shortcuts are creating and perpetuating disparity, right? That is the cause, right?
And they're more common whenever you someone sees a minority patient, they're more common to have that sort of shortcut, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Sounds like we got a lot of work to do on all fronts. Well, how do we get family members to talk about these things more? Is it when you talk to a woman, and well, you know, especially in the work that you do, and anybody can answer, how do you encourage them or counsel them regarding what to disclose to family, to friends, and when? How does that conversation sort of go? Because everybody has their comfort level, you know?
Mhm. Yeah. Wow.
That's
I
a
don't know,
hard
yeah.
one.
That's a hard
Like,
one. Well, I
It
mean,
is.
it goes back to having these hard conversations at the kitchen table.
Yeah,
And
before disease happens
that's why
too.
I'm hoping that young people will bring that to the table. But I mean, in our internship, you know, we've learned that we asked our interns to make a video with their mom and their best friend. And in every instance, it's been their first conversation with their mom about breast health. So
Yeah, about health, you know, before
Health,
before
about
sickness
health.
happens, because that's the problem, I think, is that we don't know how to show up for each other sometimes in our families, and we don't create safe spaces for it when we do get sick.
we
And
don't,
that makes it, you know, you gotta, like you say, Ricky, protect your peace, right? You have to know where and how to resource the help that you need. And I think that's something for family members to think about this October and beyond. Like you said, Z, every day, how we showing up for our family members? You know, are we truly checking in with them?
yeah, we as
Right.
women just talked about it, you know, we just take it all on. We put on
Right.
the purple cape, we
Mhm.
put on the gold crown, we're
Mhm.
tired, we're
Mhm.
worn out, we're overworked, and we still get up every morning and suck it up and do what we gotta do.
You know,
Every day.
I've seen three types. I'll give you an example. Okay, I have the family that is solid. You know, there's a lot of love. They're I don't want to say functional, but they're happy and they pretty much have an intact family unit. So those conversations are sometimes easier to have, you know, because they're not coming from a place where they're trying to protect their family from further burdens and dysfunction. Okay, because that conversation with that mother or that sister is completely different because now they're in a protective space. It's not, they think that by not having a conversation, they are maintaining what they
Right.
have or what they consider to be a safe space.
Right.
So there's that perspective. Then on the flip side, I have patients that are not English speaking. So sometimes they'll bring their children, teens, to translate.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But they're taking in that diagnosis at the same time that their mom is. They're giving their mom literally the bad news,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Now that's heavy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I have watched women try to maneuver three different type of scenarios.
Mhm.
You know, the mother that may come from the family that's intact, and now that intact has been shattered.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Then the family that was already in a state of some type of dysfunction that's trying to retain what they think they have as a safe space. And then the child that has taken on the role of giving their mother that type of bad news. So the reason why I say that's a really tough question is because that conversation, it is going to take place in the environment in which that family lives. And the best thing that we can do is try to figure out how to support where they are in that environment. I can never dictate the conversation, but I can try to help support them through it. Like sometimes, you know, it's easier to talk with the patient first privately, you know, before anyone else even comes in. Use a translator. That's what I recommend. Try to use an interpreter. Don't put that on no baby.
Mhm.
Sometimes the parents are insistent because they don't trust
They
the
don't
medical
them. Yeah,
system.
right.
They don't trust the interpretation.
Right.
But then if that's the case, try to have something or think about something to help that child.
Right.
Because they walking
that
away
child
with
support.
that. You know what I'm saying? And I've never seen anything like that. These are the kind of things that I believe are part of care,
Yeah, they are part of care.
you know, and
Yep.
Yeah.
is you only thing you do is just try to be there for them, be there for the family. I tell people you have, if you don't say on one hand that when one person gets cancer, the family gets cancer, but you don't have no resources or no investment in how to support the family too.
Right.
But then expect the family to be there to help facilitate. Really?
Right. Right. I love talk about standard of care though, that's beyond the drugs.
Yeah, yeah, it's actual care. Care as a component of the standard of care.
It's actually
mind blown. Yeah.
love that. I'm gonna change how I think about that because it is bigger than the care.
Yeah.
And that's why I think clinical trials are better.
Yeah.
I mean, because they are thinking about the family. They are thinking about your daily routine. And you know, when we talk about side effects, you know, it's not that your hair falls out or that you feel nauseous, that you can't go to work, that you can't feed your kid, that you can't cook the dinner, that you can't go grocery shopping. That's what the side effects are about. It's how it's impacting my life as a mom, as a woman, as a whatever, as a family member. But we have a lot of work to do because we're not getting it, you know, and I think that you know, we just aren't, I think, you know, most doctors aren't like you guys.
That's true.
I mean, I wish if the whole world were like you and you practice the golden rule like everybody else did, we'd have better quality of care across the board. So we need more love in the system. We need more love, you know, we need more love like Z's providing to her patients,
you know,
but it's a lot of work.
And more support for that care, right? You know, we want patients to hold up their end of the bargain and to show up for their treatments and to, you know, be compliant, as I hate that word.
I hate that word.
Right, but we have to, I think, meet people where they are, because it's not like everything stopped just because cancer started, you know, like the bills kept coming, and you know, the hypertension's still there, the diabetes still there, depression, anxiety, whatever else, the kids' school projects, everything else, the joblessness, you know, the houselessness, all that stuff is yeah.
But be intentional. That's my thing. You know, I know I say that, and people was before, they probably like, oh, she's still talking about that. Yes. Because
say it again.
This is my question, and so for some it's philosophical, but for those who are really committed, it's real and it presents opportunity. You know where the patient comes in to be treatment, to get treated. Okay, here's the box where the treatment is for the disease. Here's the bigger box for the billing, right, for that treatment. So we know where the treatment is. We know where the billing is. Where's the care?
Right.
I am so serious when I pose that question. Where is the care? And how do we even define care? And who's defining it? Wow. How many, okay, we know how much you invested in this new MR machine. We know how much you invested to hire these little people to collect that bill money. Right. What's the investment in the care?
In the care.
Itemized. Line by line,
like that is so great, right? If you itemize, what if the practitioner itemize the list of things that they do for a patient, like they do the billing?
Okay, you know what? You're getting to the heart of, I think, part of the challenge with healthcare is that when you look at the things that can directly impact the return on investment versus the indirect return on investment, like not losing a patient out of the health system, like having a patient who is well and healthy and you can do preventive things as opposed to treatment related things, right? Like that's going to be a cheaper way, and you make, you know, but it's hard, Z, because the way the beans are counted, right? Because we know that's what the accountant people, they count the numbers, and they can't count how much money you save by adding another social worker, right? All they see is an expense. And that's part of the problem. And that's part of the dialogue that needs to change.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the way to do it is to be persistent and to be, well, then if you don't know how a social worker changed why you're hiring them in the first place. Why start an investment into the unknown? And then tell me you don't know. What?
Well, because they say you got to have one, but then if you ask for two of them, right? Your cancer program wants two now. Now you can't get two. You get one. You don't know, but you can't get two because we can't justify that's making money for the health system. And that's where it gets tricky.
But that's our responsibility to say, well, you know what? I can justify.
That's right.
I didn't ask you to justify it. I asked you for a social worker. Okay? Because until we bring that same fire and zest that they brought to COVID, they paid for people that was living and dying with COVID. Don't tell me nothing about justifying for a social worker with cancer patients.
Right.
Yeah, those dollars they materialized, didn't they? They called those COVID dollars came.
They
They
rematerialized,
showed up.
they finished, they recirculated, they all in everybody.
Right.
Don't get me
Right.
started.
People got all kinds of loans and things, and communities got all kinds of grants. It's still post-COVID grant money floating around to do things that, you know, for health disparities, the buzzword of the year, right?
But they persisted.
Yeah.
People that own businesses, when they fell down on the ground crying because nobody wasn't coming to their restaurant, they found money. Right? When people didn't have money and they lost their loved ones and they couldn't afford burial, they got money. Right? Okay. That's what I'm saying.
I heard that. She said, so there is money. Don't say there's no money.
But the bottom line is you cannot address one disparity and then erect barriers and sustain barriers for a whole nother community that's suffering the exact same social determinants.
I love
So
it.
you equitable or you not. You
There it
equivalent.
is.
Okay?
You're not equitable.
There it is. Equitable or not? Question mark.
Losers.
Dr. Candace, you feeling it too, aren't you? It's getting hot over there, isn't it? It's getting hot because, you know, we live on both sides of this fence, right? We're on both sides.
I completely agree.
Sorry, sweetie.
I think until there is a lot of research proving direct improvement in mortality and morbidities in patients who have direct access to social workers and all of the care that they actually need when they're diagnosed with cancer will stay in this situation.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a lot of work to be done. And I completely agree with you, Z. We need to treat the entire person.
We do. And the entire family.
Yes.
Really the whole family.
The whole
So-
family.
Sounds like some great research that we can do to quantify the impact of these things on the cancer community and on the financial toxicity and other things. I know we're working on a poster from our cancer program because we have a financial navigator who just helps people figure out their finances. You know, we wish we had 3 more, but we got the one that we got, and we're going to try to publish some data on that because it makes a difference. Maybe not the direct ways that hospitals are looking at on their checks and balance sheets, but it does make a difference to the patient and the care, but also to that financial bottom line that hospitals need to see in order to justify it. But Z, you preaching right here about, you know, how we truly show and exemplify equity. And I think that there's an op-ed somewhere in there for you to talk more about this as we're talking about what health equity means to people and what it means in 2022 and beyond. You know, you're absolutely right. We found it when we needed to, and why can't we? Right? Why? Well, do we not have the advocate? Why can't we? Why can't we make enough noise?
Well, see, I think we can in the clinical trial setting because we're measuring so many other things. Why can't this be part of the conversation when you're doing a trial? And the pharma companies are investing so much money in the trials. So why can't we have a family component, a life component, or whatever? And I think some trials are thinking about that. But to me, if you're measuring you have all these metrics happening in this situation, why don't you add a few more to it and say, okay, what was the impact on the family? How did the family fare? What were the financial implications for the family during this trial? And maybe it's because you're sort of in this, I don't want to say petri dish, but clinical situation where you're measuring things, add some more variable, add some socioeconomic things to that conversation and how people are feeling. I mean, to me, the whole conversation about healthcare needs to have cultural humility.
It needs to have that big time.
It needs to address, how am I making you feel? Not how you feel healthy, I got a fever, but how are we making you feel? Are we making you feel whole and safe and secure and confident? Have some level of confidence that you're going to get better. I mean, when you have cancer, you just want to live. I want to live. I want to live. I want to live today. I don't want to die. So, and I can't live if I don't have a place to live. I can't live. I mean, you know, what are you doing for me that's going to help me live and thrive as a patient? I want to thrive as a patient, because if I don't thrive as a patient, I can't get to the other side of it. Yeah. If there is one.
And the beauty of it is, this is an opportunity that is probably the most equitable and equal, because this will help all cancer patients, Black, white, men, women. It don't even matter.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, So there's really, there's no reason not to. And I would just say, again, we have to deal with changing the power dynamic and construct in healthcare, because we ain't at the top, right? No, I mean, we might got a smattering, but that's about it. So we have to change from the bottom to the top, but the bottom is the foundation. I don't care what you tell me if I don't agree with it.
Right.
I'm gonna try not to be disagreeable, and I'm working on it, but or just be discordant, but don't force me to accept a framework or to operate within the framework where I am not represented, or where that representation is compromised or diminished.
Right.
And we have got to take back control of our own, not just our narrative, because we are more than our narrative,
Right.
but start dealing with the structural, determinants of health.
Yes.
On the structural determinants of the social determinants.
Yeah, structural, because first of all, that's a whole nother conversation, because I don't even know how you think about socializing poverty.
That's another episode.
But to start dealing with it, the structural determinants of health, and start really asking questions about the mission. If you say your mission is to take care, to do whoop whoop blah, but you can't tell me what care is, then really, how you taking care of me? You tell me how you build me. You tell me how you treat me. But when I ask you about how you care and how much money you invested in that care, what? So that's our responsibility. That's not their responsibility. And as long as we wait for someone to come and just deliver this, okay,
we'll be waiting.
We're gonna keep on waiting.
Keep on waiting.
Like I said, we ain't got to be mean about it. Again, I'm working, but we just have to not be afraid to have the conversations, because we get lost in process, and our principles and our purpose oftentimes is diminished, and we just be true to who we are.
We're not gonna let that happen.
And
we're not letting our purpose
and I feel like there's a lot of people in the healthcare industry, honestly, that are really receptive and will probably support the conversation, but nobody is starting it. Everybody's sticking to process and metrics and all of this stuff. Just start having those conversations.
We're throwing it out there, girl. We're throwing it out there, girl. So
I love this. And that's the crux of what's happening over there on First Friday. If you are watching, put your hand towards your monitor, because I bet you it's hot right now, because it's woo! This conversation is hot, it's spicy, and it's real. Boy.
It's real.
Yeah.
It's real, and it's live and in color, and we are here, and we're gonna go out there and talk to some people and get some shit done.
Yeah. This is a conversation that can be had and hopefully will be had at different points at any healthcare system, any community network. It can be had anywhere. It's all about health and putting the humanity back in health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put that down. Put the humanity back in health. Dr. Candace, how can people find you? How can they follow you? How can they support your work?
So I'm currently at Stanford Healthcare. I'm at the Emeryville location as well as Pleasanton. My name is Candace Thompson, and you can find me. I'm also on Twitter, CT Breast MD. So,
and we'll put all the information in the chat. And woo. So
are you guys going to be going live on Facebook and Instagram?
Yeah, we're going to go live tonight, but then this, we're going to be in the street talking to people and giving out our tchotchkes, and we will.
Z, what do you want people to take away? If they take one thing away from this conversation that they were going to tell their family or friends, or that they saw this and they were like, wow, I really, that moved me. Is there one thing you want people watching to take away? Or two or three?
Oh, girl, I'm just saying, continue to love your family and be patient with them during that time. Don't be afraid to engage beyond the medical and clinical conversations, because we are more than our diagnosis. Present your full self, and with the expectation that they respect and they treat your whole self. Challenge whole person care. Whatever hospital you go to, read their mission statement. Okay, and use that as a way to establish what the espoused standard of care is. And then you question them when you feel like those standards are not being met. And
Love it. Give it to them. That's right. Relentless.
Woo.
Dastardly. Ooh, and on that note, we hope it's been relatable and reliable and real. That's what we set out to do every single time we step on this recording here on the Doctors. And Ricky, thank you for getting these powerhouses in the room together, for starting this movement, you know, for keeping the movement going and showing up and showing up and showing up. And Z, thank you. Dr. Candace, Dr. Thompson, thank you for joining our movement and being part of our world and our breasty organization. And you can find Ricky at touchbbca.org if you need something or you wanted to come to your city. The Doctor's in.
Yeah, Doctor's in. So on Sunday, we're going to have baby breasties. Ari is coming on and with some baby breasties, triple negative under 25.
Wow.
So we'll have that conversation, how it's affecting young. And so love you, Mo. Thank you, Mo.
Love you all. Love you madly.
Bye.
We got some hearts here. We got some breasty love going on. There it is.
I always do mine wrong. I don't know why.
You got it.
Yeah.
There it is. You got it. I love it. Come see y'all.
Love you.
Bye. Love you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.